A lot of different YouTubers have done challenge runs, where they have to follow certain rules in a run to make the game more challenging for themselves. But what if someone were to do dozens of different challenges in one single run? Can you beat Fallout 4 with a new challenge every time you complete a quest? The challenges for this run are based on the mutations from Left 4 Dead 2, and I'll explain each mutation and its challenge equivalent in our Fallout 4 challenge as we get to them, but for now, since the special theme for this run is Warhammer 40k, I create Lionel Johnson, one of the most based Primarchs in the series, and the one I'm hoping returns next, as best I can, and try to favor charisma and agility in my special stats since Lion is one of the best commanders amongst his brothers, and his skill with the blade is legendary. And after I smooch Mr. Russell one last time, they put me on ice. I think the Institute killed my wife and stole my son, but I don't know for sure because I was folding laundry as it supposedly happened. I tried to be tactical when escaping the vault, but I just kinda shot 1,000 times and snagged a pit boy on my way out. The base difficulty for the run will be hard, not for any particular reason. I just wanted things to be more challenging, and later in the run, I will have to briefly lower said difficulty on account of being instantly melted. I have a couple of mods installed for added difficulty like usual. Survival options for when I have to bump the difficulty up for the challenge, arbitration to make it easier for enemies to see me, follow me, and fight me better with smarter combat AI, Draco's leveled NPC enemies to make the enemies stronger and even smarter, and some assembly required to reduce the amount of full power armor sets available in the game. First up, Sanctuary, where I collect every single Warhammer 40k weapon from one of the 40k weapon mods I have downloaded, but since the ammo for these guns is incredibly rare and requires a lot of points into Gun Nut, Science, and Chemist to make, we'll have to stick to clubbing enemies to death like Canadians do with baby seals. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, nearly 200 weapons weigh quite a bit. So for convenience, I spend 2.5 minutes walking to the cheat room while over-encumbered to grab a ring that boosts my carry weight to allow me to carry everything. I also used the chem station to make 2 more 40k weapons, but since one used 50 cal bullets that I didn't have, I would only be able to use the melee weapon for now. Using the Devil's Cleaver, I tried to follow one of the 40k quests for more equipment, but immediately died due to lack of any protection. But after trying again, I was able to fight to the robotics disposal ground, where I then believed I was locked out of progress by a literal lock. We'll come back later. I then decided to follow the main story in hopes of getting some good armor. I helped Codsworth clear out Sanctuary, got Dogmeat, and cleared Concord of its raider infestation, completing out of time. Now I've got to help Preston clear the Museum of Freedom, but with a challenge to complete and an axe to grind. The first challenge is Realism, where survivors in Left 4 Dead can no longer see the glowing outlines of the infected, and common infected enemies become stronger. In Fallout 4, I'm simply going to turn off my HUD to prevent me from seeing enemies on the compass and bump the difficulty up to very hard. With the Dragonfire axe in hand, I one-shot all the raiders and saved the day while only dying or nearly getting one-shot a handful of times. The power armor I got on the roof was only a nearly broken chest piece, so after I clear the streets I ditch it, and instead of finishing the quest, move on to a different one for reasons I'll explain later. I picked that lock from earlier, but it just gives me a weapon and some ammo. Nothing quest pertinent. But after that, I search the dump and find a strange transmitter with Dogmeat's help. I followed the signal, and after getting shredded by gunners for a good 15 minutes and then axing them a question, I got a garbled message to go to that one big raider camp with the turret and the bonfire in the middle. Knowing when I'm in over my head, I go ahead and head to Diamond City. Unfortunately, I was defeated along the way. As I'm traveling, because of arbitration, dozens of ghouls catch wind of my existence from thousands of miles away and follow me through the entire Commonwealth to Diamond City, where the entire city's security team goes to war with them behind Piper and I, while she partakes in a little bit of trolling. I get to Valentine Detective Agency and finish Jewel of the Commonwealth, starting Unlikely Valentine, and switching challenges in the process. Next is Bleed Out, the reason I didn't immediately finish When Freedom Calls. Originally, Bleed Out doubles special infected spawns, and makes it so that only temporary health items like pain pills spawn in. But for our challenge, all enemy spawns are doubled with the Random Encounter Manager mod. I can only use items like Buff Out and Vodka to increase my max health instead of using healing items, and every 10 seconds, my maximum health is reduced by 10 points. Realism is finished, so the difficulty drops back down to hard, and the HUD comes back, but now I only have about a minute to finish a quest before I die. Luckily, I can just talk to Preston and finish When Freedom Calls to complete the challenge and move on. And though I restore my health after finishing the challenge, I lost 40 health in just the time it took to talk to Preston, reducing me to only 88 max health. The challenge this time is a lot easier: follow the leader. In Left 4 Dead, it's a bit more difficult since you can only carry one gas can across your whole team at one time when there are typically around 4, with each team member normally being able to carry one each. But in Fallout 4, the closest I could get was only being able to complete objectives for one quest at a time, which actually surprisingly did come up in the run. Using the Guardian Spear, I slashed my way through Park Street Station with some slight struggle, but after hacking up a couple dozen triggermen and reveling in their bloodshed, and definitely not repeatedly dying in a pool of my own blood, I euthanized Dino and, after methodically eradicating the Sweet Prince, by flooding my entire body with any drug I could get my hands on, Unlucky Valentine is done, I switch to my guard's combat knife and start the next challenge, Last Gnome on Earth. In Left 4 Dead, one player has to carry a gnome throughout the entire mission, but since there isn't a gnome you can hold onto in Fallout 4 that I'm aware of, I decided that for the next quest I do, I have to carry Jangles the Moon Monkey as much as I possibly can. Can't do it the whole time because of things like fast travel and doors and stuff like that, but for combat, travel, and conversations he'll be right there with me. First I need companions to help with combat while I've got Jangles, so first I grab Piper, and I don't count small talking quests as being enough for a new challenge. And, after defeating an entire tower of an orc wog with all their glorious Daka, as well as a flamethrower-wielding raider, I get my new Capital Wasteland companion, Clancy the Centaur. He may be a fucking disgusting abomination, but he's got a top hat and a monocle, so he's based. That took almost an hour, on very easy, and I wasn't even doing a challenge. But Clancy is worth it. Also, I knocked this orc's head off of his teeth, which was metal as fuck, but regardless, with Jangles in hand and Clancy and Piper by my side, we start on breaking into Kellogg's house, and fucking Jangles is nightmare fuel the entire time. Every time I speak to someone, he just glares at them, it's great. Now starting on Reunion, our next challenge is Last Man on Earth. The original Mutation is basically you're alone, only special enemies spawn, you get one auto revive, and more healing items spawn in. So our version is basically no allies allowed, one save reload allowed, and more healing items spawn from the Wasteland Wound Care mod. I dismiss Piper and Clancy to Sanctuary, and me and Dogmeat set out for Fort Hagen. With the Hammer of Iron in hand, and Electric Fire Sledgehammer likely from this Iron Within, Iron Without sourpuss, I pretty much single-handedly wipe out everything between Diamond City and Hagen without even needing my one save reload. Even this fucker, if only because the Hammer of Iron can paralyze an enemy on a hit. After getting to Hagen, Dogmeat's gotta go and I work my way through the fort, and let me tell you, when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem starts looking like a nail. Kellogg doesn't even get a word in edgewise because I don't want to risk my one save reload and use VATS to hammer him down. The Blimp Bros arrive in town, so our Legion has just appeared. Also, I've finally sold enough loot to pick up Eugene, the Fallout 3 minigun, so I'm eager to actually use it this time. Now that Reunion is done and Dangerous Minds has begun, I go to Sanctuary and pick up Piper and Clancy and grab a Ripper for the next challenge, Chainsaw Massacre, where, as the name in the movie reference would suggest, I can only use a chainsaw weapon or basic pistol, but I'll be using the Ripper for the whole of it. I stop by Cambridge PD to help out Dance, since the Brotherhood of Steel is our winning faction, and after completing Revel, I have to dismiss Piper and Clancy again because the next mutation is Room for One, where I can't have any allies. Now armed with the Hammer of Skulls, or the Hammer 4 Skulls while I use it, Dance and I head to ArcJet Systems, and plow through tons of enemies along the way, and continue to do so through the building, clearing the quest quite easily. With Call to Arms done, next is Headshot, where only headshots do damage. I didn't have a mod that could do this exactly, but the Zombie Walker mod that spawns a ton of new zombie ghouls into Boston has a setting to where a zombie can only be killed with a headshot, so I used that and make some tears with the Hammer of Tears. Ugh, that pun was particularly heinous, ugh. Anyway, I snag Piper and Clancy again, and now I hop onto the Pridwin and speak with my Primarch, even though I'm a Primarch. Whatever, I talk with Maxon and the rest of the crew. I get the first full suit of power armor from the Brotherhood, but I can't use it because I lose the effect of the carry weight ring while I wear it. And Tegan is naked, for some reason. After decommissioning a couple dozen ghouls, I take to the Federal ration stockpile to get those 40k weapons, and after smashing all the raiders inside to bits, it leads me to the Sister Drop Pods, where a legion of Sisters of Battle are waging a war against all the nearby raiders and ghouls. After the war comes to an obvious conclusion, I finish that quest, recruit one of the sisters, Sister Catherine, to my team, and set out to the Boston airport with our new challenge, Left 4 Dead's Survival Mutation. For this challenge, I combine my Random Encounter Manager and the Zombie Walker mod and crank the additional enemies to 100% on both, to replicate Survival's never-ending enemies. As for why the airport, I can apparently create servo skulls to help me with one of my 40k mods. So to continue amassing my army, I head to the airport since that's apparently where I have to go to get them. I grab the Liber Mechanicus tome that gives me the crafting recipes for the skulls, and after bashing with my Orc Basher and some finagling, I get one of each skull. Prepare to see these guys a lot, because once you summon them, they come back from the dead and follow you forever. Next, I have to fight through a literal ocean of ghoul enemies trying to find the railroad for later with the Courser chip. But with enough DACA, I was brutal yet cunning, and cunning yet brutal enough to make it to the Old North Church and play buddy-buddy with Detroit Becomes Stupid. What? I already made the Detroit joke in another video? Yeah, I know, but it's hard to come up with original material all the time, and who better to plagiarize from than the funniest person I know? With Freedom Trail done, I opt to start first step with the challenge for Swordsman, where I can only use sword weapons, and I start it while wielding Sister's Embrace. After hacking and cleaving through to Diamond City, using the city security to lose my tail seeing as my stupid ass forgot to turn off headshots only and infinite enemies, I continue on through to, plot twist, the Natick Police Department to get a stun gun. This will be very important later. After that, I go ahead to got you again, Vault 81 for a legendary flamethrower. Other than Dr. Pensky being half the woman I remember her to be, everything inside was relatively normal, though to get the flamethrower I had to save Ashes and the vault from zombies and then complete Hole in the Wall, where things got less normal. All the mole rats were replaced by dozens of ghouls each, so I summoned some of the servo skulls, and my army of servo skulls and companions and I took to culling the herd. After freeing Curie, I got what I came here for, the M2 Vault-Tec Cleaner, a flamethrower that never has to reload. And I finish Hole in the Wall and move on to the next quest and challenge. With my Orc Bait-em-up, I've got to beat the next quest on Hard 8 mode, which doubles enemy spawns, which shouldn't be too hard seeing as I just beat Hole in the Wall with Headshot, Survival, and 4 Swordsmen on, but after deleting Zombie Walkers for now, I use the Random Encounter Manager to double enemy spawns and set out. First I take a pleasant, peaceful walk to Saugus Ironworks for another unique flamethrower, and I definitely easily obtained said flamethrower without decreasing the difficulty and without getting Flamebroil flambéed into Vault-Tec Icy Hot Jerky a million times. Introducing the Hans M2 Flamethrower. Oh, and don't worry about these weapons being too overpowered, they're like the boss when you unlock him. After beating my way to 10 Pines Bluff, I talked to the Zogan Yumis and they asked me to warp out the rest of the Yumis into car place. Don't know what that was. Anyway, I beat my way through everything that moves in Corvega, and though I had to run it through twice, Jared and his Zogan Gits are a non-issue and I almost finished the quest. Instead, I decide to do the Memory Den mission, saving this one for a future Bleed-Out variant mutation. Problem with that? Well, the infinite zombies in Boston near Good Neighbor never despawned. So plus the current double spawns, that's, well, decidedly a problem. And because of arbitration, those problems follow me into Good Neighbor. Enjoy the show. Over 12 attempts, over half an hour, over 50 ghouls, but my companion army, my servo skulls, the entire town of Good Neighbor and I were able to band together and defeat the Red Menace. Communism is a fate worse than death. Skipping the boring-ass memory section, Dangerous Minds is complete, the Orc Knock-You makes an appearance, and it's time to go through the glowing sea to get to Nero's dad with Health Pacalypse on, or a mutation challenge that prevents me from using any healing items. I can still drop my rads, but I can't heal at all. I get rid of double spawns and begin my trek to the section of the map with the Fallout 3 filter. I've cut out a dozen deaths between when I finished Dangerous Mines and now, just from trying to get there, and that pattern continues the several times I try to grab a special weapon at the Federal Supply Cache 84 NE, which was all in vain anyway since I found out it's locked behind a computer with a too high hack requirement. After that failure, I quite literally just ran to Virgin as fast as I possibly could, almost dying every step of the way. He is an absolute fucking masterpiece of a being, seemingly warped by the Orc mod into one of the cannibal hillbillies from The Hills Have Eyes. But other than that improvement, everything goes the same. With Glowing Sea done, the new challenge is Gibfest, where only miniguns and magnums are allowed. So I take the opportunity to use Eugene, the Fallout 3 minigun, which helps me to make short work of the likes of Deathclaw and Rad Scorpions. I also have another surprise. Since this is a 40k themed run, I've gotten a mod for something that completes any 40k themed run. Astartes armor, what the fuck? Why is it pink? Yeah, textures are broken, won't ever be fixed by the looks of it. So I guess we're going to be a part of the Drug, Sex, and Rock and Roll Legion, where we let our evil snakes think for us. Fulgrim, I'm looking at you. I also get a pink-powered hammer, lightning sword, and chainsword. Yay! I fixed the problem with power armor and carry weight, and the first thing I do in my Astartes armor is have a conversation with Dance while he sinks into the floor like he thinks this is Get Out. So, armed with Eugene and some Astartes armor, I clear another horde of zombies from in front of Cambridge, and get a mission from both Halen and Reese to do later, and then Maxon sends me to Fort Strong to clear out the undesirables. I clear with a minigun from a vertibird until an orc mega armored knob blows it up, but I get back to the island and finish it off after surviving the crash. Say what you will about Slaanesh, the armor go crazy. Clearing out Fort Strong was a breeze, and Gibfest is complete. Now, because we're going to do all the DLC for this run, we start on the Automaton quest, where the challenge is Iron Man, which is Realism, the challenge where I bump the difficulty up and turn the HUD off, but I also can't reload from a save I make during this quest. Unfortunately, turning off the HUD while in power armor doesn't do anything, but I don't really care. I knock all the enemies getting to the General Atomics factory, and knock all the robots inside until I just win. With all the Lovecraftian influence on Fallout, someone should check out this place because I could see through the walls into reality itself. I upgrade Ada and complete a new threat, starting my next quest and challenge, Headhunting and Tank! With Tank just either being a difficulty increase like this time, or an encounter difficulty spike like in future Tank-like challenges we've got slated. With my Orc Smasher, I smash the zombies until I get to the floaty quest marker, and I beat the ever-living dog shit out of the robots I find there until they tell me where Jesse the Robo-Brain is. I take a brief detour to get Fallout New Vegas' CZ-57 Avenger minigun from Cricket, and then it's back to smashing. Smashing robots, smashing Rust Devils, smashing robots and Rust Devils, and then smashing Ahab to get Jesse. Escaping might have been hard if I had a Slicer, or a Beater, or a Breaker, but since I have a Smasher, we're golden. Jesse gets a thick new body and tells us how to get to the main baddie of this questline, the Mechanist. With headhunting done and restoring order up, now it's time for Hunting Party, where I activate the All Enemies Invisible mod from the last run to turn all enemies into Hunters, which I decided was a fair representation because they're the stealth infected, and it's time to use my Guardian Bolter to pump these walking toaster ovens and talking Roombas full of 50 cal. The gun was pretty fun to use and pretty strong, but the section itself was pretty mid. The invisibility did spice things up a little, make shots harder to place, make fighting rushdown enemies a bit more scary, but on the whole, Ada's scanner and Ada's pathing was a bit too buggy to be the main gimmick of this entire building. After drilling a couple new holes and exhaust pipes into everything in, not sight, I face off with the Mechanist, who sends an arena-style wave of minions at me. After I wipe out her entire pathetic army, she says she wants to talk it out and immediately tries to kill me, a woman after my own heart. I return the favor by boring a hole through her skull 40k style, and Automaton is fini. Next challenge is Lone Gunman, so no allies and Magnum only, so bye-bye companion army, hello trash-ass Eddie's peace. Me being as smart as ever, I decided that this was the weapon I wanted to challenge a Courser with, But after agonizingly working my way through all the gunners, I did eventually get to and kill the Courser. But that was my biggest mistake. See, the next challenge is Bleed Out 2.0, which for this run is just bleed out, but I lose 20 health every 10 seconds. And even though I have a quest queued up to be completed, I'm kind of stuck at the top of a building with a broken elevator. After a couple of attempts of trying to get to the press turret as fast as humanly possible, I instead get there as fast as possible for a Primarch and complete first step with only 140 maximum health remaining, half of my normal amount of 300. What's worse is that, even though my health is restored for the next quest, I got 2 bleed out type challenges in a row, with the next being Healing Gnome, where I only bleed out when I'm not holding Jangles. Well, I take Jangles with me as I grab Clancy, Piper, and Sister Catherine again, and I decided to commission the murder of a nearby robot to complete the Rogue Robot Radiant quest I got in passing from Ada after jackhammering the Mechanist's brain. I didn't lose much health, but that could have easily been a disaster. Next is Special Delivery, which is just hard 8, but double the double enemy spawns. I do this by activating the basic settings for the Random Encounter Manager and Zombie Walker, as opposed to the max settings for both on Survival with infinite enemies, though I forgot to turn off headshots only again. I decided to do the Tradecraft quest to get the Special Delivery challenge out of the way, and boy was I not disappointed, though beforehand I make a quick pit stop to the Fed cache for that special gun, a unique RSH revolver called the Putinizer, which we'll be seeing later. I meet Deke under the bridge, but have to kill half the Commonwealth and enemies first since he won't talk to me because, like enemies, his aggro range is massively expanded, so he's trying to fight raiders 60 miles away before talking to me. This isn't the last time I'll have to deal with this. Also, this guy right here made the entire trip worthwhile. Bro really thought he was Tariel from Morrowind. Ricky Dalton decides to also wage war against every living thing, so after like 15 minutes, we finally get to actually go to Slocum Joe's, and I just hack through all the synths like Jesse should have hacked up Emilio. The whole quest took less time than it took for Deke or Ricky to actually talk to me. Next is Flu Season, which usually replaces all enemies with spitters, and in Fallout 4, I wanted to change them all into Mirelurk Hunters because they spit, but I couldn't figure out exactly how to do that at the time, though luckily I had to fight a flamethrower guy, which is kinda like a spitter a little bit. And even more luckily, I had the Hans flamethrower, so I wasn't outgunned. It's got a cigarette that lights the gas that comes out of the flamethrower, which I thought was just like pretty dang cool. Anyway, after several attempts of burning regular gunners, assaultrons, and stock pyros from Team Fortress 2, I exterminatused the drug vault for a quarter mastery mission, but next is riding my survivors, so I'm gonna take a break from having fun for a mission. Instead of jockeys as every enemy, I chose the only enemy in Fallout that I could think of that grabs you. All Deathclaws for this quest. This time, I looked a little harder and found something to change all enemies into Deathclaws, and man, fuck the mission. The mission and the weapon, Big Orc, Choppa, and all that bullshit don't even matter because I spent 10 solid minutes getting repeatedly slammed by Deathclaws. I finally escaped and immediately turned off all Deathclaw replacements upon completing the quest, and next up is the Nightmare Challenge, which will be realism, but even stronger enemies, so I bumped the difficulty up to survival, but turn off all the survival parts like hunger and thirst with the survival options mod, but to lean more into the Nightmare Challenge aspect, I boost enemy damage to 3 times the norm, and I decrease my damage from 1.5 times the norm to just 1. I get the Railroad to help with the Courser chip and then talk to Virgil, then finishing the quest after building and using the molecular relay, but since I barely did any combat, I stick with the Nightmare Mutation even through the Institute missions and beyond. Still, I didn't want to have to deal with the Nightmare Challenge on a harder mission, so I cleared the Mole Rats at the first Minutemen buildable from scratch settlement, but I felt like maybe that was too easy, so I also did the first pickup for Dr. Carrington on Nightmare as well. It was at this point that I understood the name Nightmare. It took 1,000 years to finish because High-Rise wanted to kill every living thing in the game, yet just ducked them instead of actually fighting them, but eventually we delivered this guy, and the nightmare of my Nightmare run was over. The next challenge is like Iron Man, but easier. Death's Door makes it so that I can't reload from a save from a point after the quest has started. With the Vault-Tec cleaner in hand, I enter the Gwinnett Main Brewery and immolate the entire cast of the Crab Rave music video. By the way, if I'm ever sparse with information about a quest, it's usually because it was just a Radiant quest, so don't worry about that stuff. With that, Death's Door is done, and Confoggle is up, where I can only heal with temporary hit point items or max HP increasing items like Buff Out or Vodka, but as I take a hot pink powered hammer to all the faces of the Green Boys, I'm back at Cambridge PD with my Buff Out stash not looking too worse for wear in a blink. That means it's time for Holdout, or a challenge where I have to fight off enemies while remaining in one place. I considered doing the Take Back the Castle Minuteman mission or a Settlement Defense, but I got a bit more creative with it. I decided to run through the FEV lab for the mission to recruit Dr. Lee for the Brotherhood of Steel, and the way I did Holdout was that once I entered a room with enemies in it, I could not leave said room, something difficult to do on hard mode when fighting dozens of laser turrets. Eventually, through struggling with my Choppa, I got the proof for Lee and the cure for Brokeneck Brian. After that, Lee joined back and we began to reconstruct the truest patriot to grace America, Big Nuke Football Throwing Robo Guy. Next mission is Libertalia, and I had a good idea for the challenge on this one. But first, let's hear some explosive words of encouragement from Paladin Dance.
Of course she did. But the point is what happened. Halen approached you.
That scared the shit out of me when that happened. This challenge is Dash, where it's like Holdout, but the Holdout location changes after a bit of time. For this quest, I treated each platform of Libertalia as a holdout zone. I spent 40 seconds on the first platform, 20 on the second, a minute on the third, 20 seconds on the final platform before I had to jump off and then climb all the way back up to the top, then having a minute on the last platform, which was enough to recall Gabriel. After I retained that synth, I grabbed some kind of update for Carrington through a bunch of enemies, only using the stun gun the whole time because Shoot Zone, the current challenge, is one where I can only hurt enemies when standing in certain places. To bypass this, I used the stun gun so that I can briefly stop my enemies without hurting them at all. After getting the hell out of there and completing the quest, the next 3 challenges are Left 4 Dead 1, 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 respectively, where in our challenge, I'll only be able to use weapons from Fallout 1, 2, and 3 respectively, to which I chose the .223 revolver from Fallout 1, the cattle prod from Fallout 2, and the 10mm SMG from Fallout 3. Using the 223, I blasted my way through a group of raiders with this beast of a gun that definitely packs a decent punch. But the next quest with the cattle prod was a nightmare. First I get sent to Far Harbor without realizing it and almost get killed by ghouls, mirelurks, and a deathclaw, only surviving because of my 223 on the way there. Oh, and for any confusion, the 223 is in Fallout 1 and 2, so it's okay to use here. After realizing the quest was in Far Harbor, I helped to fix up old Liberty Prime instead. After that, I take the 10mm SMG to the Glowing Sea to get my hands on some explodey footballs for Liberty Prime. I also extensively used a Fat Man, a weapon that's also a staple of Fallout 3. The SMG actually worked really well. It handled very similarly to how it did in New Vegas, where I have thousands of hours handling it. On my way out, I retire this ugly fucker, and, since my Slaanesh armor is barely hanging on at this point, I decide to slap on some new power armor. Ta-da! Some actually textured Space Marine armor. Even better, the Lion can finally don his true colors. Liberty is then reprimed, but if you're looking at how much time is left on this video, you can probably guess that I'm nowhere near done yet, because now, we're gonna do Far Harbor. For our first Far Harbor quest, our first challenge is Rocket Dude, where the rules are basically no allies, double health, explosives, bladed weapons, or magnum only fire in straight lines, only buff out, and no healing items. I deadass forgore about the double health, so I just sent all my people home, used the Fusillade grenade launcher, and only healed with buff out. I mainly used it and the Alpha Legion bolter to defend Far Harbor's hull, since bolter shots are also explosive, and I'm finally able to create ammo for at least most of the 40k guns. Since I am Alfarius, as are we all, it's only fitting that I continue to use both the Fusillade grenade launcher and the Alpha Legion bolter, even after defending the wall and finding Acadia, without help I might add, since I'm still doing Rocket Dude. Dima is demented as per usual, so I give Kasumi a reality check and then go and help out the people of Far Harbor, help they're gonna need dealing with this megalomaniac. I do some of the quests for Far Harbor on Tank Run mode, which turns all enemies into tanks unlike Tank, which just increases tank spawn, but I couldn't think of a tank equivalent in Fallout 4, so I just upped the difficulty the same as for Tank! And instead of having unlimited ammo as per normal, Since I usually have unlimited ammo with how much I have, I decided to continue using 40k weapons that I have limited ammo for. I also used the Anders las pistol, which has a fun little recharger ammo-like cartridge. It seems that you only lose ammo when you're reloading a full clip. If you reload manually before running dry, it doesn't seem to affect your ammo, so that's kind of limitless. It's such a solid sidearm that I use it to kill Douglas twice. Damn crashing. After finishing Bloodtide, I decided that these couple small quests were enough to warrant a challenge switch. So, with the entire list being run through, we start back at the top of the mutation list with Realism, so very hard mode and no HUD, even though it doesn't matter because I'm wearing Space Marine armor. I've got my armor-piercing Inferno's Blessing, and with it I melt a couple of ghouls to finish Hull Breach. On Bleed Out, I scramble back to the Commonwealth to finish a mission through Preston, only dropping to 280 HP in the process. For Follow the Leader, I warn Maxon of the Institute's bunker assault, but have to run away when he tries to progress the Go Blow Dance's Brains Out quest, since Follow the Leader only allows me to progress one quest at a time. I use my shooter to wipe out some ghouls and the synths and Courser at Bunker Hill for the Brotherhood of Steel. I gather my companion army again and fight my way through to my disappointed father. Well, my disappointed son who is called Father. Jangles and I execute Dance. And after finishing that quest, we're all the way back to Last Man on Earth, so my companion army takes a hike and I head to the Children of Adam's nucleus in Far Barber? Far Barber, with Black Bolt in hand. Once getting there, I split and go and grab those magnets or whatever for Faraday, switch to the Chainsword for Chainsaw Massacre, massacre my way to completing the Cannibal Trapper murder quest, sawed and blasted my way through the Mylar Queen with the Chainsword and Black Bolt pistol for the Captain's Dance all by my lonesome on Room for One mode, turn on Headshot mode, rebuild my companion army for the umpteenth time, finish the Vault 88 quest for some reason, max out enemy spawns for survival mode, and bring Blessed Peace 2 and rain Bloodfire on the Filth of the Commonwealth for Oberlin Station. At this point, I've started to run out of ammo for all of my fancy new 40k guns, so I bust out Blood's Heart with over 400 ammo and finish Oberlin's quest. Then I learn about Father's illness and how I'll be the new commander and based of the Institute. Psych. But after that, I go ahead and wipe the railroad the fuck out without even blinking an eye. Something fairly easily done even with the survival challenge active, since Blood's Heart and the rest of the 40k guns are, let's say, worth the level investment. I secure Pam, and with tactical thinking done, 4 Swordsman is up again, and I chop up every misbegotten abomination on Far Harbor with my lightning sword as I follow my foggy mommy. Richter and Tectus seem to like my wooden handmade Hatsune Miku figure, so they let me join their club, but Heart 8 is next, so I decide to throw myself into one of the most enemy-populated missions I could think of. Spoils of War, or Brotherhood of Steel's version of Mass Fusion. This gets me kicked out of the Institute, but I don't really care, so I blow 'em up more with my Blow 'em up more bolter, snag me a beryllium agitator real quick, and completing that starts Ad Victorium, and switches the challenge to Health Pacalypse. So I annihilate every robot scum in the nucleus to get a prize that everyone definitely wants, Dima's Memories. And once I get there, I prepare for the second awful memory sequence in this game. Again, skipping the boring-ass memory section, I get to Dima's cache with, no resistance, get some codes for something that I wasn't paying attention for, accidentally kill everyone in Far Harbor, restart, kill the local wildlife with just about every bit of advanced weaponry you could think of, before killing Grun, a small orc with a big heart, and a big health pool. Then discovering Dima's murder of Captain Avery, holding Dima's trial, and sending Kasumi home, effectively finishing Far Harbor while successfully completing Health Pacalypse, Gibfest with the CZ-57 Avenger from New Vegas, and Hull Breach 2 on Iron Man mode. I do a bit of cleanup after that, like clear a settlement with a Stalker Bolter on Tank mode, and save Mitch's uncle against a horde of trappers on Hunting Party mode, but after that, it was back to my non-fish oil smelling Commonwealth. Just good old normal radiation and pollution smell. I cleared the Banish quest from the Institute because I'm a dumbass and didn't think to save it for a Bleed Out challenge, used the Putinizer for the Lone Gunman challenge while starting the Nuka World DLC, Putined my way through the Gauntlet, Putined Coulter, failed Bleed Out 2.0 several times because Preston kept wanting to start taking independence instead of just letting me complete the Oberlin quest, which wouldn't work because I definitely didn't have the health to do an entire quest losing 2 HP a second. Decided to just turn in Cleansing the Commonwealth instead, did Taking Independence on Healing Gnome with Jangles in tow, both of which nearly killed me, switched to Special Delivery, and headed back to Nuka World to take my first territory, Galactic Zone. I still couldn't turn enemies into Mirelurk hunters even with mods, but since the kind Mr. Gutsy looking folk at Galactic World, being the sticky, sugary, propaganda-riddled dogshit amusement park that it is, spray you with poisonous Nuka-Cola. So I'm considering this first zone as a double whammy. Nuka Galaxy dragged on forever and featured a couple of weapons just by virtue of taking so long. Robco Battle Zone was okay and had a lot of things to shoot and loot in quick succession. The Starlight Interstellar Theater sucked ass because I kept dying not to the big boss enemy but all the fucking laser turrets. And Vault-Tec Among the Stars was barely on my radar because this was right before dinner and I skipped lunch that day. Finally finished with Star Control, I gave the park to the Disciples and went to go watch Hypnotic with my family. It wasn't a very good movie, but if you have an hour and a half to kill and you've already watched all my videos, give it a shot. After that was Kitty Kingdom, and I tried to replicate Flu Season better by making all enemies Children of Adam. It worked! And it fucking sucked! I killed a million zombies and rad spitters, stalked Oswald throughout the park like Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, crashed because of a pair of cars on a track ride 1,000 times until I just reloaded from an earlier save, beat the shit out of an immortal Oswald for like half an hour before reloading this not broken game, and killing him in 30 seconds after that, gave Kitty Kingdom to the operator Twinks, and switched challenges to Ride My Survivor for Dry Rock Gulch, but I didn't see a single Deathclaw the entire time, so I gave that park to the operators, I think, and kept that challenge for the next park, Safari Adventure, which had the next best thing in spades, Gator Claws. After pushing those Tyranid wannabes into extinction, the park was rightfully awarded to the pack, and next I cleared out the World of Refreshment of its Mirelurks on Nightmare Mode, which was hard as hell again, and gave it to the Disciples. With Nuka World's main quest effectively complete, we only have one more objective: complete the main game. With Liberty Prime on the move, it took a half hour and some WOG DACA to get him to the CIT ruins, because of his massive aggro range and literal size making him try to actually kill half of downtown Boston personally. It was insane, especially with leftover ghouls from infinite and double or quadruple spawn challenges. But I held off the robots from iRobot, and since this is just Death's Door, all I've got to do is avoid dying, or else I have to start this massively long test of patience over. But that ended up not being a problem, and we breached the Institute where I meet up with Maxon's forces, and we storm the Nerd Club. With the final mission on Confoggle, or Buff Out Heals Only, as our last challenge, I kill everyone and everything in the entire building while barely taking any damage in the first place, allowing for me to avoid any healing of any kind, allowed or otherwise. Then I leave Synth Boy behind, and I beat Fallout 4 with a new challenge every time I complete a quest. This took forever, the planning for the challenges, the recording itself taking nearly a week, the scripting taking 2 days, the audio recording and editing taking however long that's gonna take, and to top it all off, as of the day I'm writing this, my cat, my pet and companion of 15 years, Pepper, one of 2 of the only pets I've known for 90% of my entire life, passed away. I honestly don't know if I passed the challenge for sure. There was so much footage, so many fuck-ups I had to reload from, and so much stuff to keep track of, but as far as I'm aware, I succeeded. And I'm dedicating this success and every other success in my future to Pepper. God bless you, Pep. I love you and I'm gonna miss you. Well, on that note, that's Can You Beat Fallout 4 with a new challenge every time you complete a quest. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Remember to join the Discord if you want to tell me how much of a D-list YouTuber I am, or talk shit about me to other like-minded individuals. And I've been Chris, or Red Fox RPG, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.